Yep.
Yes.
All right, let's call to order the August Lititz Borough Council meeting. We have Chris Sensenig is on virtually. Mary Gaddis is absent.
This evening, Reverend Daryl Hurst from Dove Westgate will be giving the invocation. Daryl?
Let's pray. Lord, I want to thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us. We're grateful for that. I want to thank you for this Borough Council. God, we know that your word is very clear that those that are in these roles have been called and appointed by you. And we know also, God, that those you call and appoint, you also anoint with the wisdom and the grace they need to fulfill the role to which they've been called. So we pray for your grace, your wisdom, your guidance. May this council make wise decisions as guided by your hand that would make Lititz a better place to live for all involved. God, so we thank you for that. Pray also for the police force. Thank you for Chief Owen as he is here tonight. I pray your protection over him and over his officers. God, I pray that they would bring peace into difficult, intense situations. May they do the work with excellence, and may you protect them in everything that they do. So we thank you for the officials, the government of this borough, and we pray, God, your wisdom, your favor, and your blessing over each and every one. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Daryl. Would you please rise, please? Pledge allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I start, just to inform everybody, council did have an executive session 6:15 prior to this meeting to discuss some real estate. First on the agenda, did everyone get a chance to review the July 29th meetings?
Yes.
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 I'd like to make a motion to approve the Borough Council meeting minutes dated July 29th, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. All right. We've got three presentations, and first on the docket is the 6th Street traffic study. Council, as you know, we went forward with a traffic study. I can't remember the exact time. I want to say within the past year. Now that 6th Street was opened, waiting till it was finally opened on the east side in Warwick Township. So traffic study conducted by Grove Miller, and I believe Jay is here. So, hey, we're going to ask you to come up and kind of give a summary of this very in-depth report you prepared.
Sure. Appreciate everybody attending tonight. I'll just give a brief overview of the study. The study is about 20 pages in text and about 90 pages in data, so I won't bore everybody with all the data. What we did is we took a look at 6th Street from West Orange Street on the west side as it continued through the borough. We didn't look at the section in the township, and then continued to Kissel Hill Road. Our study involved pretty much three different aspects. The first aspect was to do some traffic counts, and those traffic counts were conducted on two areas west of Broad Street and two areas east of Broad Street. Those locations, we gathered data with the road tubes to collect the average daily traffic on those sections of roadway, as well as to get some information on speed and some vehicle classification. The simple response on the vehicle classification is there's not much trucks on West 6th Street or East 6th Street. We found that as far as the traffic volumes go, on the west side, closer to Orange, the least amount of traffic is in that area, specifically about 600 vehicles a day on the west side, closer to General Sutter. As you get closer to Broad Street, obviously the traffic volumes increase in that section because we're getting closer to the build-up area. The traffic volumes would increase to about 4,000 vehicles a day. When you switch over to the east side of 6th Street, east of Broad Street, that's probably the highest volume we have along 6th Street, and those traffic volumes are about 5,400 vehicles a day. And then as you get closer out towards the east, toward Kissel Hill, the volumes are about 3,800. So as expected, the core traffic is closer to Broad Street. The other aspect, in addition to traffic volumes, we want to look at what the speeds are. The 85th percentile speeds on the western section between Orange and say the roundabout where Woodcrest is, the 85th percentiles are in the 32 to, I'm sorry, to between 23 and 28 miles an hour. So they're,
Jay, can I just for visual
Sure.
context, Rob, can you pull up, I think it's page 20 in the report? Just so, as you're going through these numbers, again, I'll admit I'm writing
Gotcha.
quickly and just so the audience can understand where you're talking, I think it would be good for you at least to point in some of these areas where the traffic is. And I also want to make sure the public understands where the area of the
Thank you.
study
Good point,
was.
yeah.
There's a visual we all have here. So if Rob can find it, it'd be helpful for everyone. It's all the way towards the bottom of the report.
I think it's pages 20.
It's page 20. It's right after the text.
It's a large document, so it might buffer a little.
White lines.
Yeah.
All right. Well, work on bringing that up. I just think that'll help everybody as you were rattling off those
Sure.
numbers. So everybody, you can point to the different areas towards the bottom, Rob.
Right, we're there. It's right that page there.
Just got to wait for it to catch up. Okay. Sorry to interrupt there.
Oh,
but it's
I appreciate
visual
that.
help.
I saw it wasn't on the screen, but I thought it's a buffering issue because I have the same thing when I'm trying to do a Teams meeting. It sits there and spins, and I tend to talk through that sometimes.
Continue on and hopefully it'll
Sure.
catch us up.
In addition, like I said, in addition to the traffic volumes, we wanted to look at what the speeds were along both sections west of West 6th Street and East 6th Street. The 85th percentile speed on obviously the roads are all posted at 25 miles an hour. The 85th percentile speeds on the west section range from 23 miles an hour to 28 miles an hour. That's within the 25 mile per hour posted speed limit. That didn't really have any concerns with us. Even on the eastern sections, the speed's a little bit higher. Obviously, the road context is a little bit different through there, being wider streets, not as built up with some traffic calming and some other issues on the items on the west side. Those 85th percentile speeds range from 30 to 34 miles an hour, which is still not at the speed limit, but they're not anything that would raise any serious concerns. We've done some other speed studies on similar situations, and the speeds are up in the 40s, which kind of gives you a little bit of immediate need for reaction to that. In addition to all that traffic data, I actually walked the whole roadway from West Orange to Kissel Hill. We did a pretty extensive inventory of different sections of the roadway, looking at what pavement markings were provided, what signage, width of the roadway, took a lot of photographs. On the west side, there's obviously some traffic calming right now with the speed table, humps, cushions, whatever you want to call those. They have different variations of names. And then on the east side, there's not really any traffic calming in that section, but we do have some additional speed signs that are, capturing the speeds, some school bus signs that are establishing where acknowledging where the school bus stops are, as well as the park in that area. So we did the traffic counts, we did the field inventory, so we came up with some recommendations. Part of the recommendations kind of look at three different aspects, one of which was we looked at, let me look at specifically on the east side of 6th Street in the area of the apartment complex. We had made a recommendation that the borough consider contacting the property owner about putting stop signs on the Lititz Manor Drive approaches. They're not borough streets, but again, they're streets that don't have any kind of traffic control. So one of the recommendations was to provide some stop signs on those approaches. The second recommendation that we thought was appropriate is to be consistent with what we're doing along South Broad Street with the pedestrian crossings. That's called type C crossings, like piano keys is what we call them. we had made a recommendation that whenever those certain sections of roadway are upgraded along either East or West Sixth Street, that the piano key type C crosswalks are installed for more visibility as opposed to the 6-inch parallel lines that you typically would see on certain sections. The final recommendation that we thought would be for a planning purpose, not necessarily something that would need to be implemented in any time soon, but for discussion purposes, was to look at providing some opportunities from traffic calming on the east side of Sixth Street in the area of Locust and Laurel Avenue to kind of slow the traffic down a little bit. Like I said, the 85th percentiles were still not considered, in our opinion, to be dangerous, high compared to other sections of roadway that we've evaluated in the past, but just considerations of maybe a raised crosswalk in certain locations, maybe a speed table, speed cushion, speed hump in some locations, or even some curb extensions that would have maybe a rain garden similar to that you have up at the New Street Park. With the amount of driveways for residential uses along the east side of Sixth Street, we certainly want to look at the impacts of any of those traffic calmings that would have directly affecting those residential driveways. We certainly want to put a raised crosswalk right at the end of someone's driveway. They'd have to meander that every time they came in and out of their driveway. But I think from a planning purposes, we thought it might be best just to consider some options for that for that section. The west section, we didn't feel that based on the speeds, based on the traffic volumes, that the west section has its own kind of traffic calming, low traffic volumes. Didn't see any need for any significant, planning purposes for that section. It's a really brief overview. I got kind of in the weeds about some of the traffic data without the benefit of the map that I prepared. I know it was a big file, so I apologize for that, but certainly available to answer any specific questions. If you want me to go over anything more specific or talk about any specific items, I can answer those questions.
Just, I apologize to the public that the visuals aren't working, but if you can try to visualize in your mind, I mean, the area that was studied is Sixth Street that starts kind of where Keller Brothers back parking lot is, and take that all the way over towards the library, eastern half, and then the western half is where the roundabout is, basically what goes through Warwick Woodland. Again, this traffic study was done as the final connections occurred, west side over Woodlands and then the east side township past the library. The only thing I would ask, again, you rattle off a lot of numbers and I don't even know whether I wrote them down right, but those of us that don't spend every day studying these traffic numbers, that a lot, a little, it's just trying to understand. And the one that I'd say the highest number I heard you say was east of Broad, 6th Street from basically the Turkey Hill east, you're saying 5,400 vehicles.
Correct.
How do we benchmark that to say, holy cow, that's a lot, or that's?
Well, let me just clarify that 5,400 was in the section between Broad Street and Cedar.
Okay.
Once you get east of Cedar, the traffic volumes drop off as you get closer to Kissel Hill. So it's that short section in there.
Okay. So it's 3,800 once you get east of
Yes.
Cedar.
Yes,
Okay. So obviously people must be turning on Cedar.
correct.
I guess that's saying you got roughly 2,000 cars that are turning on Cedar. Continuing. Okay. Or something. At that point.
Yeah, I mean, it was expected that the traffic volumes closer to to Broad Street were going to be obviously higher in that section, and obviously with the signalized intersection, that wasn't a surprise.
And then I was trying to write the numbers down as you were going to the west side, but I heard you say 600 vehicles on the west. So is that from where to where?
600 vehicles between Orange and General Sutter Avenue.
And then the next number, I didn't check where it was.
4,400, which was between South Broad and Spruce. So we captured the section that was closer to Broad Street.
Right now, I guess what that's kind of telling me, not too many people are continuing all the way through 6th, all the way to the west at this point.
There doesn't appear to be a lot of people that are coming east on Orange 77 and making the right onto to use it as a cut through at that section,
Right.
which is beneficial. That was one of the concerns we had was with the connection, are they shortcutting coming into the, continuing on Orange into town and, using Sixth Street, but it doesn't appear that's the case.
That was the concern. I think even way back when Warwick Woodlands was being developed, would people use that instead of going through town? I mean, obviously different ways if you're going from Manheim to Brownstown.
Right. And we did traffic counts for a week. So the data wasn't just a snippet of one day. It was a continuous 7 days of doing traffic counts at those 4 locations.
And then on the speeds, just educate us all, said the 85th percentile speeds on the western half was 23 to 28 and 30 to 34. And when you
Yes.
say the east, so that's from Broad
Yes.
to Kissel Hill, the average speed.
It's broken down. There's a table 1 on page 2 of the report. It's broken down by specific sections, but just from a range standpoint.
Yep.
And it's obvious that the speeds on the west side are a little bit lower than they are.
There's the visual.
a map.
There's a visual I've been waiting for.
So the white lines are the areas of West Sixth Street that we studied. Red is the section in the township. When I talk about the west side, obviously it's from West Orange to the roundabout at Woodcrest, and then the east section. There's still a little west section just to the right of the red area as you get from the township into to Broad Street, but and that's pretty much the outline that we looked at.
Okay.
I would say go to the next one to show you exactly where the data was collected, but oh, there it is right there. So that one right there, that shows exactly where the counts are. The blue dots represent where the traffic recorders were set. So basically the 600 vehicles on the left side towards General Sutter, the blue dot is where the machine was set to capture the traffic data. The traffic data really didn't change too much between that section and the roundabout. So we wanted to get something closer, just outside, just the west side of Broad Street. We wanted to set the one there, which was the 4,400. The one to the right of that on the east side of Broad Street was the one where we had the highest, the 5,400. And then the far one to the east is the 3,800. That's kind of in the area of, Laurel and South Locust.
And then on to your recommendations again, for council, it's on page 20 there. It goes to the various recommendations that you listed off. And obviously the piano keys would be consistent with what we've been doing, newer areas developed. And then the raised crosswalks, the speed bumps, etc. What's the trigger point? You're saying there's something we should plan for, but it's not like do right now, or?
I mean, I think it's to put we identified the whole, we evaluated the whole roadway. So we know that, unless there's some concerns, or at least there's, some enforcement that's shown the speeds are higher and there's more speeders on the west side. I think the west side's built in a way that's kind of reducing the speeds.
That's a newer development. That
Right.
was developed. That was part of that. It was eventually roads are narrower,
Correct.
slows people down.
There's traffic calming already established there. I think if we find that the traffic and the speeds are higher, or there's some more, tickets given, if there's more concerns about speeds on the east side of the Sixth Street, then, we could just put another count machine down in one of those areas and just capture what it is a year from now or 2 years from now, and just compare that. We have a baseline now of data with the road open. So we can come back and look at it. Just set a machine is, I'm saying it's pretty cheap, but it's pretty cheap. We have that done pretty efficiently. So we can come back. I can look at the data in about 2 seconds and say it's the same as it was when we look back in 2025.
But is there like a trigger point? I mean, again, staying on the east, you're saying the 85% of the cars are doing 30 to 34. Is there a trigger point in traffic engineering world that if this came back and said it's 50 to 54?
Yeah, I mean, there's not really, I mean, there's a trigger. I mean, anything we add to the roadway is going to slow traffic down. So it's just a matter of there's a perception of, is it something that could be planned as a program project, whether it's, curb extensions, just to show one applicable location to see, just to plan that for the future. I don't think there's there's without the raw data, like if we saw it spike to another, 5 miles an hour, I'd say, yeah, it's probably time for it. There's not really a mechanism. A lot of times it's how the projects are moving forward. If there's a roadway project coming through, then we'd want to certainly integrate some type of traffic calming with a new project. But, if some of the residents have some concerns about speed, if you're getting data back from your radar signs that are showing that the speeds are higher since a year, I think we'd want to look at some stuff. But there's not necessarily a trigger that puts it like once we get to 40, we should consider it.
Okay.
But certainly if we got to 40, I would say we probably want to consider it. But there's not anything written. It's more of a seeing how the road operates. And part of that too is I know it's later on the agenda, but the all-way stop that's being proposed at 6th Street and Kissel Hill, it's a natural traffic calming device. I mean, although it's already stopped on 6th Street, it just naturally will slow traffic down in that area.
Council, other questions?
Thank you for your report.
Sure.
On the western side toward Moravia Manor, when did you do what time of the year did you do the count?
It was in December.
In December. And where was the count? There was a blue dot. Where did you do the count on that street? Where is that?
That would be between the General Sutter intersections. So it would be south of where the roundabout, or south of where the
On the dot, the blue dot over there.
Blue dot, yeah.
Yeah, that's obviously an old aerial. So there's
Yeah.
buildings, the buildings are there, but it's in the section that's between the two General
That
Sutter.
was done what year? What was it?
It was December of 2024.
We just did
September
it.
2004. Thank you.
We did it basically once things open.
I have a question.
Sure.
And it's going to bring someone else in the conversation. Jared, we've invested in several, thank you, traffic sentries. We have about 4 now. Yeah. So I'm curious, from your capturing data on those machines, how does that match up with the data that was just presented on those areas, especially on the east side of 6th Street? Do you have some comment on that? Are we getting accurate data from those machines?
So we just looked at some of the data recently as a follow-up to the conversation on North Cedar Street. I'll speak to that later on, but generally, the speeds are, mostly within or under what we can enforce, either at the speed limit or slightly above it. Some of these areas that are subject to the study don't have traffic boxes located, so we could
Right.
certainly position them with the intent of using that data to follow up, whether it be 6, 12, 18 months post this study, to compare that data to this baseline to see, is it trending one way or another? And maybe that could be a data point to determine what the next steps could be.
Thank you. I'm just curious, can we use our machines to help build on what we've already got, and we know it's accurate, and we can help monitor things in these critical areas?
Yeah, some of them are mobile, some have more of a permanent attachment, but we do have some flex to relocate if there's a reason to move it from one area to the next.
We have one that's labeled up there at East 6th Street. We have one that's pretty darn close to that now.
Yeah, there is one closer to the Laurel Street intersection, or Laurel Ave intersection, I should say. So we could certainly see what data we can get from that. And again, if we need to move some to the west side, we have the flexibility to move a couple around.
Well, it sounds like the east side's more the concern.
I would, that's
the
my
higher
suggestion.
speeds from what
The
Jake's
feedback.
getting too, but I'd be curious to see what yours, are they coming in the 30 to 34 range also?
Yeah, and I think we could probably set some benchmarks into the future that we want to see what, like I said, 3, 6, 12, whatever the time frame is to see, are things changing.
Right.
Thank you, Jared.
Renee?
Do you have anything?
Chris, do you have any?
I do have one thing. I mean, we are going to make this public, this study for everybody to see.
Yeah, we can post it as of tomorrow.
Okay, yeah.
I was going to say, you did a good summary of it. I mean, like you said, 90 of the pages are spreadsheets of numbers and matrix that'll make your head spin.
We appreciate the digital world now because we used to always make 10 copies or 12 copies of everything. And
You're not sitting out there in a lawn chair with a little check mark.
no, no, no. Early on, I used to do the count boards sitting at intersections, but that was 30 plus years ago.
Chris, online, do you have any questions for Jay before we
I
open
do
up to
not, thanks.
public?
I do not, Steve, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
No more questions from council. I'm going to open up to the public if they've got questions. If you've got questions for Jay, come up to the mic, state your name, your address, and hopefully Jay can answer them.
I'm Bruce Stauffer, retired from BR Crider. Um,
Your address.
I'm at 508 West 6th Street.
Took you a minute there, Bruce.
So a few thoughts. The question of the date was questioned to me. December seems like a little pre-inhabited area, yet it's developed since then, I think, quite a bit living there. The other question would be driving the whole 6th Street. Every four-way crossing has a four-way stop. If you drive 6th Street, anywhere where there's a four-way crossing, it's not a stop sign yet, but it's a four-way intersection. There's stop signs except for, what am I trying to say, at General Sutter and also out at Kissel Hill. So I was curious, how did those other folks get their four-way stops? Other thing is, living in Moravian, we have a restaurant right at the intersection there with General Sutter, and we're all elderly, so we don't get across driveways very fast, across streets very fast. So, and there's a lot of wheelchairs that are using that street too. So that's my comments.
Thank you, Bruce. And what I'll ask Elijah, obviously you guys, those of you that live there know that was developed and ish years ago. I can't remember exactly.
The groundbreaking was about 9 years ago.
So there's obviously a traffic study, and if you can pull that out, Elijah, there was obviously a traffic study, traffic design, traffic plan when that was all developed and went through the land development. That went on for like about 5 years, if I recall, that land development prior to that. So I would ask you to pull that out. Bruce, that'll really have the answers there because obviously that's a newer development.
Thank you. Gene Homan, 304 Lark Lane, Warwick Woodlands. Several comments. With the time, you said December. Was it a week when the students were in school or not?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think that would really change the volume in the morning and evening. One big consideration, I think, as a shortcut, is being found more and used more. And so I think you're going to see a change over time. I can visibly see it. And those speed tables are pretty much worthless to speed people down. You can go over them at 35 with no problem. I'm comparing it to the speed tables over near Roarstown on Farmingdale Road where you must go slow. So I know there's some federal or state regs on this, but they have to be effective. I want to emphasize Bruce's point. If it's an neighborhood with a blind person, children playing, and I'm sorry to say elderly, I don't want to be ageist, but we really do have a senior community. There's a lot of people in their 80s, a lot of walkers, a few wheelchairs, people with poor hearing, and that intersection at the Woods, people speed through there. I had breakfast last Friday morning. Looking out the window, I saw several cars going visibly way too fast. Tonight, coming over here, as I pulled out of 6th onto Orange, 2 motorcycles turned that corner very fast, making a lot of noise, cutting into the turning lane where I was approaching. Visibly, an officer would have pulled them over. They were going way too fast. So I think, I know you want traffic flow, but it really seems to me a stop sign at General Sutter and Sixth, where the Woods apartment building is going to be advised. It's, the accident numbers are going to happen. I know over at Kissel Hill in Sixth, that was very obviously in need of a traffic sign, so a four-way, and I'm glad to hear it's coming. And I think people in the suburban areas have just gotten used to four-way stops, and they don't think that it might be going through. I was up in Myerstown today and had to take the detour, and boy, you really had to be careful of streets that had no stop signs for the crossing. So I think I hit all my points. I think the volume is going to be increasing a lot, especially not where your dot was there, but right down there by the woods, because it's an open shot. Once you go around the traffic circle in Woodcrest, you don't have any stops at all till you reach Orange. And so you can really zip through there. It's an effective shortcut. And final comment is, in that traffic circle, it's all built up with vegetation in the middle. You can't see what's coming around sometimes. We had one neighbor who had an accident there because she couldn't see a car coming around. So vegetation's nice, but you need to see. Thank you.
Elijah, one thing as you pull out that land development plan, that traffic study done in Warwick, it would be interesting to see as the traffic engineer. Jay, I don't think you were the traffic engineer. Were you on that one?
We reviewed it.
Okay, you reviewed it, but you weren't the engineer. But I'd
No.
just be curious to see what the projected traffic was for the design of West Sixth versus what we're seeing now. Because there was I sat in many meetings about the traffic calming, the speed humps,
Yeah,
a lot of that. So I'd be curious to see if the projections are matching the actual.
we can, and if there's no projections as far as the ADT, the total daily traffic, they certainly did traffic analyses at West Sixth and West Orange. So we can take a look at, because not only do we get the total average daily traffic, the reason why there's 90 pages of, we can get down to 15-minute intervals, but we only print the hour intervals. So we can actually go down and compare. I can even pull, I probably have an archive that study. I can pull that and find out what their projections were versus what our traffic counts are showing.
Yeah.
Because I recall, don't hold me to this, but I know there was some concern, well, whether that intersection at West Orange and West Sixth was going to meet a traffic signal. We're going to need a traffic signal there, and it's so close to the other signal, and it wasn't warranted. And I mean, the average daily traffic that we collected to that location kind of reaffirms it. It probably wasn't.
I remember I was shocked at the time that was.
Yeah, I was too. But I mean, yeah, I'll pull that information.
Again, obviously engineers do projections based on historical data assumptions, but I'd be curious to see now that it's open.
Yeah. And the projections now for PennDOT and most municipalities, you look at 5 years, but at the time that study was done, it was still a 10-year requirement. So we're probably right in that same area where those projections are what the actual traffic is right now.
And to, I think, Gene's original question, we intentionally waited until school was open there because I think we were going to do it earlier in the year, but school wasn't. The intersection opened before school opened, but we wanted to make sure school was in full activity. So,
And Jay, just for my own understanding, the traffic study they did, would that include phase 3, or would they have done one for each phase? Because phase 3 is still required to be built out. So
it would have included, from my recollection, it would have included the whole development because of dealing with PennDOT with the access onto West.
That was my thought as well. So the traffic amounts that are even going to be shown in this traffic study is assuming the extra apartments and the commercial mixed use is there. So I think
that's a good point.
If we see that
it's shown as dirt right now,
it is a much denser development, right? So I would be surprised if the numbers are anywhere close to what was projected at that point.
That's a good point.
I can pull that too and look at,
the rest of the commercial, the independent living extension of all that was in the original plan isn't built yet. Okay. Any other questions for Jay from the public?
Good evening, all. I'm Dave Hilbert from Kissel Hill Road in Lititz here. I I'm a little bit confused on 6th Street on the eastern side. I believe you mentioned that the 85% of the cars going through there are going through at 30 to 35 miles an hour. Is that correct?
Approximately,
Yeah, approximately. Okay. And we have a playground in that area. We were talking about that another month or so ago, too. And I believe in talking to other people on 6th Street, they've been very concerned about the speeds on that street. Now, I hear some things can be done. I saw a lot of circles up there, but I don't know what they mean. But I think we ought to give some thought to doing something within that block there rather soon, because we don't want our kids hurt. There's a lot of moms there, and they're opening car doors and things like that. So I think we ought to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
I think that aligns with some of the recommendations Jay's talking about here with speed bumps or raised walks or calming devices. Anyone else from the public?
Hey, Dave.
Dave Carson, 220 East 6th Street. Some of the questions have already been taken, so I'm sure you're happy that I don't have to talk about that. But yeah, the playground situation, that's my concern is these things should have been discussed before it. Now we're putting children at risk, which should have been resolved and talked about before anybody gets hurt. But the previous council made that decision in management. With your proposal, are there project costs in there for like things like calming and traffic things that will be in that report? The cost of those projects? Okay.
So we had, to your question, Dave, we had David Miller Associates take their historical data and give us
Okay.
some assumptions. We can share that too when the report's out.
Okay. So that'll be put online? I mean,
However, we're going to share that. There's no harm in sharing this also. I mean, I can. Yeah.
so his study plus the cost of these calming effects.
Yeah.
Will be on there. Okay.
Yep.
So the other question I have is, you said roughly $3,800, 3,800 vehicles per day from like Cedar to 6th. Is that a lot for that stretch?
Not for that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions from the public for Jay? Okay. Thank you, Jay. Right. On my papers here. Presentation. Wise Gas and Go. I don't believe there's a presentation. We're going to be talking about an extension, correct, Elijah?
Yes, I don't think anyone's here for that, and they did supply a extension request yesterday.
Okay. So, Chris, do you want to take that?
I do. I have a memo dated August 25th from Joseph Gurney requesting a 35-day extension of time to allow for review and approval of the plan, and would prefer to have the meeting, this item we put on the September 30th, 2025 Borough Council meeting agenda. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the extension request.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Thank you, Chris. Next up is this special events, which Steve Tanea.
Yep. So we're going to have a presentation. So since the beginning of time, feels like, if anybody wanted to hold an event in the borough, they'd have to complete an application. And it was sent directly to the police department. And then they would be the ones to coordinate all of the departments of who was going to be needed for those events. So Chief and Wes have been working together to streamline this process. So, which is why the Streets and Traffic Committee invited them to update council and the public about the intentions to change our events process in the future. So if you guys want to give a little presentation, please.
Thank you. So the intent tonight is not to ask council for any decisions, any commitments. It's simply just to present information about some of our experiences, some of our vision going forward. This has come from experience within community and the emergency services, and then some other feedback that we've gotten from different residents and organizations within the community. So we go to the next slide, please. So this is just some high level conceptual stuff, basically the what and the why, that we even wanted to look at the current process and determine, is the way that we're doing it still the best way to do it? Or should we be looking at different ideas or efficiencies, cost recoveries? There's a lot of different pieces that go into it. So the first is the overarching objective was to improve the application permit process. We think there's some streamlining that can be achieved through administrative efficiencies, through differentiating that although all the events go through the same process, they're not all created equal. Some have very little demand on borough services and some have great demand, but yet we treat them administratively the same way. Is that the best process moving forward? And of course, we also want to be respectful of council's time. You always have full agendas. You have a lot to consider. The event sponsors in town are usually Lititz-based local nonprofits or other entities who spend a lot of time planning these great community events. So we want to make sure that we're not overly burdensome with them as well. And then also we felt, like you had alluded to, historically the police department has been the hub of taking the special event from receiving the application all the way through to implementing a lot of the strategies the day of. I don't necessarily know the history of it. I don't know that it's really documented anywhere. My suspicion tells me that at a point in time, we were the only borough department that had the full-time staff to run with it. And that's been a legacy practice that has continued. So one of the things that we envision is to have emergency management play a more central role in the planning of these bigger events that require the coordination between borough departments. So when we have needs for police coverage, EMS coverage, fire coverage, public works, we all fall under the umbrella of emergency management. That is already adopted in the borough's emergency operations plan, and it's consistent with federal standards through the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the National Incident Command System. That framework already exists. We're operating within it functionally, but procedurally, it is a disconnect. So we think that we can leverage each agency to bring their leaders, their people into the process, because I, as the police chief, may not have the subject matter expertise that the public works superintendent does about what barricades are best for this location versus that location. So it really has each agency and their leadership having a more involved role to determine what the best needs are for that department. Also, we want to be more intentional about making sure that these events physically are safe. Unfortunately, you can find many recent examples, especially events that are on public roadways that have a lot of pedestrians, of vehicles entering the event when they shouldn't be, whether it's an intentional act, an impaired driver, a medically impaired driver. So we've implemented recently a lot of strategies to make sure that all of our closure points are hardened barricades, not soft barricades that would not stop. Of course, with the borough approving these events, we want to make sure that not only are they safe for the people that attend them, but also making sure that we're insulating the borough from risk liability if we're not putting the proper safeguards in place after we've already approved these events to happen. So the other thing we want to consider is fee structures. There is a balance, and this is a conversation at some point. The balance between the direct costs that the borough puts out in terms of personnel and equipment to staff and make these events safe versus what the greater local economic return is for these events. So, I think there needs to be discussions of a balance between what's the borough's investment and what costs get passed on to the sponsors, and just taking a fresh look at that too. So before moving on to some of the why stuff, is there anything that I missed or that you want to add on to? So if you can go to the next slide, please. And some of this is touching a little bit on what I just mentioned, but the current application process does not recognize the difference, for example, between a small block party of several neighbors in that block compared to the bigger ones such as the craft show, the 4th of July parade, etc. So recognizing that from our perspective, the planning of those two different types of events require a lot different effort, a lot different resources, but yet we're treating them the same in many respects. So we want to make sure that we're able to focus the resources on those events that truly need to. And again, that we're not being overly burdensome on those events that don't require those services. A lot of legacy practices exist. In many instances, it's unclear or unknown where they came from, what the rationale was, if there is even something to trace back to, if there's ever a question of why do we do things this way? Was it enacted in some way? Was it an agreement between a council and an event sponsor? Some of these answers we just don't know because they've existed so far back into the past. So essentially what we want to do is marry up what practice is to what policy is. And there's areas that I think we can align those. Again, we want to leverage borough's department's leadership to make sure that we're bringing all the right people to the table to plan out these events from their agency's perspective. Again, the police department running with the majority of the work is not a problem, but we want to make sure that we're bringing in the fire company's leadership and leveraging that within that perspective. Same with the ambulance, same with public works. And again, letting the emergency management system that already exists do what it's intended to function to do. And then again, touching on the costs, the current cost recovery structure might not align with current leadership of the borough's priorities and what they envision for the future. So at least just taking a look at all these things. We recognize that these events are key to the identity of Lititz for the economic vibrance. There's no intention to try to make them more difficult, but we want to make sure that we're focusing resources where they need to be focused, realizing efficiencies where we can realize them, and again, just trying to be a bit more collaborative with everything. So, Mike, anything else that?
I mean, I'll just very simply add, this is a process that Jared and I started looking at shortly after he came on board full-time into his current position. And it was a great timing, honestly, because we've really used all of the existing events as they've happened throughout this spring and summer and the upcoming fall events to use those as the catalyst for some of the brainstorming that has gone into where we're currently at. So, I mean, this is something that we have looked at very in depth and we're comfortable with the direction that we're heading in. And I think, as Jared said, the intent isn't to eliminate anything. The intent is really just to make things better align with what they should in 2025.
I think the point you made that, right now we're treating everything equally, and we all know events that come through each month are not equal. Something might be 25 people gathering here and next is 3,000 people taking up Main Street. So obviously the trigger point, I think hopefully you evaluate what really needs to come through the full approval process here, much like appreciate land development. Some things are administrative approvals and some go through the full process because yes, if it's going to be on borough property, going to require closing streets, require forces, a different story. But if it's 25 people gathering, often question in the park, even though I know some of those things are changing, park's not our property. I think it's probably informative for the police to know that there's suddenly going to be 200 people, in an area. Question our authority to proving.
Right. And to that point, I mean, those were a lot of the same conversations that we had. Is one, even from a legal viewpoint, some of these events, does the borough really have any standing to interject and position itself on it? Again, if it's completely on private property, if the event that is occurring on it is consistent with that property's intended use, does the borough really want to insert itself in trying to mandate an approval process and identifying and discriminating from that against those events, like you had mentioned, on a public street that provisions borough services above and beyond what the borough would normally provide for that day or that set of conditions.
Because that's a cost.
Correct. And, and we think we can implement a plan, a strategy that focuses the planning process, the borough approvals, the application process on those events that meet that criteria. But that's not to say to ignore all those other events, because it's still good for us and for council and the community to know that although this event doesn't necessarily qualify as a special event that requires to go through permitting, we should still be aware of it from just an operational awareness standpoint, or even from a community relations standpoint, that the operator maybe wants to stop out and say hi to the block party, or that maybe somebody from the community or council's like, oh, I saw there's some activity going on here. It didn't seem like a lot, but what is it? So, and at least just to make the emergency services aware that you don't need to do anything above and beyond what you normally do, but just be aware it's happening.
Yeah, it's not an approval process, an application process, like I said, so you're aware that there's going to be 50 people congregated wherever.
Right.
Or 100, whatever. Okay, I'm anxious to hear what you come up with. Process.
Yeah, so like I said, the intent tonight, we're not looking for approvals. We're not looking for anything like that. It was just, we're aware that, people are aware that we've had some of these conceptual discussions, and we arrived far enough along in the process that we had something substantive to share. So that was really the intent for tonight.
Thank you. Like it.
Yeah, thank you. I think the interdepartment cooperation is really, really important. They can buy into these events and look out for the safety of our community. Just for the public to know, I just really appreciate the leadership that both of you are providing to our community. We are fortunate to have exceptional leadership and people like you be part of our community. So thank you.
I'll tell you that I started in the fire company, but that's the plug for them. So.
Right. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you,
Mike.
guys.
I just have
Right.
one quick question, and thank you, Jared and Mike, for great work here. What does SME stand for?
Subject matter expert. So
Thank you.
those people that have the institutional knowledge, the experience, the education that would position them better than someone else to make a decision.
Gotcha. Thanks so much.
All right, that's it with the presentations. Moving on to the ordinances. We have the one ordinance regarding talking about here. I don't know, Elijah, Anaya, who wants to take this?
I can start with it. And one question, I'm not sure if is this the time to do it or not, but we did have some community members mention, and maybe Chief, you can touch on this. So they were concerned about this 4-way stop sign at Kissel Hill and 6. So if I'm coming down Kissel Hill, our library's to my right, and I'm going to have a new stop sign there. So a couple community members were concerned that as you're coming down the hill, you can kind of see that there might not be somebody on either side of Kissel Hill stopped at the stop signs, and maybe just do a nice little breeze through and continue. I don't know that there's anything you can do about that at all, but anything that, what are your thoughts about that?
Chief's going to ticket it then.
Chiefs,
You
yeah.
would probably know
Ticket time.
obviously better than, how a traffic roundabout or some other engineering controls would do better to prevent that than simply a 4-way stop. But with that clear sight distance, right, a lot of that's going to come down to voluntary driver compliance and high visibility patrols and officers enforcement. So, my vision for when this finally happens with Warwick Township being coordinated for the stop sign on their end, obviously a public education campaign to make sure that people know that this change is coming, and then also having some high visibility patrols there, at least in the interim, to make sure that, that is being complied with, because there may be some people that are obviously so used to driving through it, but there also may be people that are just in a hurry. So really with the lack of the traffic circle or a light or something else that could compel somebody to stop, really the next step to that then would be the officer presence and enforcement.
Yeah, I think your visibility during the early stages will make it. And again, I don't know if the full engineering, and Scott, you could probably speak to this. And usually when you're putting in a new stop sign, a stoplight somewhere, there's like a flashing light. It's a period of education, because I've even said, I use that street a lot. It's gonna be tough to even see that stop sign. So it's a big habit forming for myself. I know coming down there, stop sign coming up here. So usually there's a flashing light or something. I know when you're putting in a signal. But
Can
is
we
there
extend
something,
that?
is there something 50 yards before that saying new stop sign coming up? I would just ask you to look there. I know I thought about that.
There's
When you
the
come down
trees,
that
though.
hill, flattens out quite a bit and there's trees there. So I have a feeling it's going to take some people time because good or bad, people come down that hill faster than they should. They
Hard
suddenly see
not-
a stop sign.
It's hard not to, even if you don't touch the brakes, you can.
Right. And I'd say
Pretty
with traffic safety, we typically look at what we call the 3 E's: engineering, enforcement, and education. So I think if we can focus effort into each of those 3 areas, I think it's going to position us well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, so we want to amend the ordinance C 619. This is amending chapter 115 of the Vehicle and Traffic of the Borough Code of Lititz to establish stop signs on the borough portion of the intersection of East Sixth Street and Kissel Hill Road. This is basically amending the borough portions of the four-way stop sign at that intersection. I should have asked you to stay up here. Also, there's various adjustments to the ordinance to reflect the current police practices and policies. If you, Chief, just wanted to just touch on a little bit of those in the ordinance. Sorry about
A couple
that.
of very minor ones, like for example, there's a time restricted parking in front of the Lititz Springs Park if you're facing southbound. The ordinance has a different time than what's posted on the signs. So it literally just aligns that so there's no ambiguity. It removes an antiquated provision within the ordinance that any traffic violation had to get reported to the mayor. I don't know that he wants that many emails or postcards or whatever medium that we would provide to him. So it eliminates that. And then there was also a provision when somebody receives a parking ticket, if they don't pay it, it goes to a citation before the magistrate. The ordinance required that we send a warning letter after the date that the ticket was due, but before we file the citation. So in many instances, we're sending a letter to somebody who just ignored the parking ticket, asking them not to ignore the parking ticket. So there's a cost to that. It's all sent certified mail. It's administrative time operationally for someone to prepare all those letters, send them out. If you're going to comply with the parking ticket, likely you're going to in the warning letter. Typically didn't make a difference in the return on compliance with the parking ticket. So it eliminates the mandate that we send certified letters before the ticket is sent to the magistrate's office. And just make sure I didn't miss anything. No, that was it.
We have any questions, council? Of the ordinance? All right, thank you, Chief. So I'd like to make a motion to amend ordinance number C 619, which is to, in addition to add the stop sign at the Kissel Hill and East Sixth Street.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Thank you, Tanea. No resolutions, no agreements. Council members forum. Ken, you're with your water and wastewater.
Steve, thank you. We have Infomark here to give us the July report for our water and wastewater facilities. Welcome, Doug. Good to see you.
Nice to see you. I wanted to touch up briefly on the flooding that we had at the beginning of July on page 3 of my report. So during the flooding, we did exceed our design capacity at the wastewater plant. Typically, we're seeing 2,000 gallons a minute. We reached a peak of about 7,700 gallons a minute, which is almost 11 million gallons a day over that first 24-hour period during the flooding. We were able to maintain compliance with the individual sampling. We did man the plant for 24 hours just to make adjustments and keep an eye on flows and things like that. So our crew did prevent the loss of solids, maintained adequate treatment through, we had to use the supplemental chlorine disinfection on the back end of the plant to supplement the UV. And that required additional sampling also. Due to the high flows, our weekly average biochemical oxygen demand load was a little high, mainly because of the calculation takes into the account the the flows. So we weren't too far over. Our weekly average was 523 pounds, which is 43 pounds over the 480-pound limit. So all that really required was me to write a narrative in the discharge monitoring report for the month. There won't be any violations or anything like that. They understand that it was a flooding event.
Thank you for doing that.
Sure. Also on page 3, finance, the biomass is doing its job. Weather's finally
Warm temperatures are
Yeah.
motivating them.
Yeah, so because of we had to use less chemical, we had to use less utilities. We're $11,464 under budget for the month, and we're still over 49,288 for the year to date. But that should even out. Next, capital projects on page 5, just to touch on what we have left. So obviously, well pump 3 hasn't been installed yet. We're working on getting the line moved, the electrical line that needs to be moved in order to install it. The manufacturer or the contractors also supposedly this week was testing the pump in their test well just to make sure it works before they go and try and put it in again. I haven't heard back from them yet, but we're hoping to hear back from them by the end of the week. And then I'm going to be working with Parks Department then to get that paperwork completed to move that line. The rebuild of the high service pump project and the salt room door projects were completed last week. And the only other outstanding project is a furnace replacement, and that's currently underway. Got a couple lines to run and some electrical conduit, and that should be done fairly soon too. For the wastewater plant, let's see. The final clarifier drive replacement is on order. We are looking at probably getting that in the next month or so. The pump station 1 motor and pump rebuild and the aerobic digester blower rebuild are also in progress. And then the diffuser socks and the NIR check valve replacement are on hold right now. We're waiting for parts to come from Denmark. We're supposed to be getting them, but at the end of September. So that's looking like it's going to be an October project. Let's see. Flows, obviously we're up at the water plant. They were up 18% over June. We did get 4.63 inches of rain in 24 hours at the beginning of the month, which is what put our flows over. The flows actually took about a week to come back down to normal. Let's see. And then after hours call outs, we had 6 for various things at the wastewater plant. 3 of them were an influent pump check valve. We did end up adjusting a limit switch on that and getting some reprogramming done to the computer control. And there's my rain. So that took care of those. And we had no call outs for the water plant. That's all I have, unless you have questions on my report.
Doug, thank you. I read your report. Does council have any questions for Doug? Hey, thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion to approve the July Infomark report for the water and wastewater facilities here in Lititz Borough.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved.
Thanks, everybody. Just a couple items here to go through quickly. We've had some progress on manhole 6 and 7, and right now the first payment application has been completed and reviewed. So NTEC Engineering has reviewed the payment application and confirmed that it accurately reflects the work completed to date. Based on their assessment, NTEC recommends payment to Wexcon, the contractor, in the amount of $153,288.45. So I'd like to make a motion to approve payment application number 1 for the work completed by Wexcon on manholes 6 and 7 in the amount of $153,288.45.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved.
Thank you, everybody. And then the other item to address with council is, again, on this project, manhole 6 and 7, there's a change order being requested. And the details of this change order are as follows. There's an increase in the contract price due to the unforeseen concrete encasement around the inlet and outlet pipes that's been required. and a decrease in the contract price for the unused miscellaneous items on 7, which is a cast in place concrete, number 8, which is a excavation, and number 9, which is an aggregate backfill. So NTEC has reviewed both the increase and the decreases and approval of this change order, which results in a net increase of $15,008.97 to the contract price. So based on NTEC's recommendation, I'd like to make a motion to approve the change order number 1 for manholes 6 and 7, resulting in a net increase of $15,008.97 to the contract price.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion approved.
Hey, thanks, everybody. Moving to the next item of business, MS4, there's no report for this month. The Lititz Borough Authority did not meet. That meeting is scheduled for October. We meet quarterly. And then finally, the Water Sewer Committee did have a meeting on August 20th, Wednesday afternoon. We reviewed lots of ongoing projects, and Doug and his team have really completed a lot. I hear a lot of completed or nearly done, which is great. We also had a discussion at the end of the meeting about some improvements and some suggested ideas to improve the ordinance for sewer cleanouts and sewer caps. So we've had several months to work with our partners, and both Rob and Mary and I have had discussions with Andy, and we're prepared to bring to you a presentation about sewer caps and cleanouts on September. So this is an announcement. Please come and learn about that in the next 30 days. Okay, our next meeting is in September, and Steve, I turn it over to you. Thank you.
Janaea, process hasn't changed, but you've got some activities and special events to talk about.
Yes. All right. So a few things to report from streets and traffic. As you recall, last month, we discussed the intersection of North Cedar and New Street. So council had discussions. We heard from some residents, and council requested the streets and traffic to go look into the sources and topics of those complaints. So the committee had some discussion with Chief, and he ran some data on the intersection there at North Cedar and New Street. So Chief, would you be able to share the data with us and your recommendations?
So to rehash what was discussed last month, I queried crash data at the intersection for the last year, and we've had 0 crashes. Now, we've had some crashes if you go a block or 2 out in either direction, but actually at that intersection, we've had nothing. There is one of the traffic boxes on North Cedar Street. So it is facing traffic that would be traveling southbound. So as you come into town on North Cedar Street, prior to the approach with the intersection of East and North New Street there's a box there that would register the speed of vehicles approaching that intersection. So we pulled the data from the 2-week period following last month's council meeting. There was approximately 13,000 vehicles just in that lane traveling southbound towards the intersection that were captured by that speed box, and less than 3% were at or above a speed that we can legally enforce. So it's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. We have to give a buffer of 10 miles an hour with the equipment that the legislature's mandate that we use, and then anything at 11 and above we can enforce. So it was like 2.8% of the 13,000 vehicles were at 36 or above. So, just
That's 390.
Yeah. So a good number of the cars are, below the threshold by which we could take any action. So, and the reason why I wanted to look at that data was one of the comments that I'd heard was their perception was that the speed of the vehicles could have been a contributing factor to some of the difficulty in pulling out onto Cedar from either East or North New Street. So in order to obviously determine if that was, is it a rampant speeding problem in that block? Is it the occasional driver? That's where that data is valuable. So, and combining the speed data that we have, the lack of crash data, I believe that kind of the open-ended question at the last meeting was, what are the next steps, whether it be a formal traffic study, whether it be to continue to monitor situations. You know, the experience that we've had, at least over the last year, has been that ordinary driver caution will get you through that intersection safely. Obviously, not every intersection is a neat right angle intersection at all 4 points of the intersection. There are other intersections in town that have similar characteristics that make them equally as difficult in some respects. But again, the crash data is not there as far as this particular intersection. So, you know, food for thought, all that information to consider what the next steps would be. But I mean, certainly we're going to continue to monitor that intersection. We can continue to pull crash data, look at it seasonally, when school's in session, when school's out of session, different points in time during the year, rotate it to the opposite side of the street to get northbound traffic data, continue to monitor crash data there as well to see if it trends in a certain way that we need to take another look at this. I've been here 22 years. This intersection seems to come up every couple of years. But there doesn't really seem to be any significant shifts in the crashes there. I think it's just, you know, people recognize it as an intersection that they might have some trouble pulling out to.
Obviously, we don't want to wait the crash, but I agree to your point. Benefit or detriment, we live in an old town. A lot of things were not designed today's. Sure, if Jay, we're going to design a town, it's not going to look exactly like we have right now with the site distance, everything. It's a little bit of the charming character we have, but there's a lot of intersections like that. I think the fact that we already have some devices that are checking that, it's got an education earlier on some of these things. Like there's not a large number that are exceeding the speed through there. I think it's just continuing to monitor it.
That was going to be my thoughts too. Ken?
Well, first off, I think it's great that everybody went over and was on site looking and experiencing what the neighbors there are seeing. My only suggestion is that the solution to me seems like it's the line of sight issue, and so I would be interested in, do we need a study to see if we can improve that? I don't think making a one-way would really improve the flow there or make it any safer. That's not what I would think would be a solution, but the line of sight could be something we ought to talk about possibly.
Good point. I'm trying to remember if we talked about this last time, because I can revisit. I remember the conversation we had on Orange and Spruce, and we yellow striped some of that to help some of that sight line. How far back is the yellow striping for the line of sight, that intersection now? Primarily
I
for,
think that's a valid point that could be looked at, either extending the restriction of parking another space or two. Now, obviously, the balance to that is the impact on the residents. I know on West Orange Street, one thing that we had done is we actually painted parking boxes to help people position vehicles so that they're positioned more appropriately. And perhaps another consideration is that block of, well, I shouldn't say that block. No, it is. There's two blocks. So it's the block of Cedar from Front Street going north up past New Street up to Lehman Street. Parking is only permitted on one side of the street, and that's on, it would be the west side of the street. So maybe something to look at some point could be if you flip the designated side of the parking. I mean, they're all options.
then you had problem.
I already did that. Jared already did that. You're gonna have the same problem going the other way. But I think what would be nice is let's have a conversation with the neighbors. There is options for alley parking, and let's just have a conversation with neighbors. It might only be one parking spot, but I'd like to go through the neighborhood and just thoughtfully look at options that would improve line of sight.
Yeah, like I said, that's exactly what we did on Orange. We continued that yellow down further, so you had not a car parked as close, so you can look.
All right, my question, I guess, would be more directed towards him. Would be, is that something the borough can arbitrarily do in agreement with the resident, or would there have to be some sort of study or other justification that would support the borough saying we're going to take another spot or two?
Right or wrong, I don't recall us getting a study done when we did that on Orange Street. And that's actually a state road. Because it's just parking. It's not necessarily widening the road, changing the cartway, doing any directional.
Yeah, I can do some direct outreach with the people that are close
Yeah.
to the intersection and
Anybody that might be
come back-
impacted, yeah, absolutely.
come back with some feedback.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep.
Thanks, Jay.
Okay. I've got a couple permits, special events. I've got two of those. First one is the Paco Lititz 5K. It's going to be on October 25th, 2025, running from 9 a.m. to 11. This is organized by Venture Lititz and is a 5K fundraising event for Venture Lititz. Anybody have questions on that one? All right. Another special event is the Halloween Parade. This is going to be on October 27th, 2025. Start date of 7 p.m., running till 9 p.m. The roads closed will be Main Street from Locust to Broad. Anybody have questions on that one? All right, I'd like to make a motion for two special events, one for the Paco Lititz 5K and the one for the Halloween Parade.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thought you had a comment. You were like looking, I was waiting for you. Motion approved.
All right, couple of activity permits. I've got the first one is the Harvest Festival Block Party. This is the same date on October 25th, 2025. And this is running from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's the 200 block of Swarthmore Drive, and it's a potluck block party for the neighbors. Do we have any questions? All right. We've got another activity permit. It's a wedding for October 11th, 2025. It's running time from 6 to 10:30. They had asked for a road to be closed, which would be South Spruce Street, between West 3rd and West End Avenue. This is a backyard wedding, and they're seeking closure of the road to accommodate food trucks and reception activities. Anybody have questions?
Tanea, I do have
Yeah.
a question on that one, Tanea. Do we have
Okay.
confirmation that all of the neighbors on that section of the street have been notified and are in agreement with the road closure? So I do believe it's the requester's responsibility to coordinate that and not the borough's or the police department's responsibility.
Chief, any idea? Can you mention?
I don't know. This block, the person that's making the request lives at the corner. The front of the house is on West 3rd, so the side property would extend down South Spruce Street for about half the block. I think there may only be in that block one home that would affront to
Yeah.
Spruce Street.
That would be affected.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, the other thing to consider is that it's an area of town that does have nice square blocks. So it would be rather easy to make a couple of turns to get around it and get back onto Spruce Street, just one block down.
Yeah, I was more concerned about the people who did live there, but I did not go out to to take a look. So if you're telling me there's only one other resident who's going to be affected if it's closed, that does make a difference. And I'm assuming that they would either be invited to the wedding or already
Right.
be aware of the request.
Right.
I think to the point, we should ask that and talk to that resident. Be upset. If you get
You can, yeah. All right. Okay. Note of that. Next one I have is the Lititz Tree Day. This is going to be running on September 27th, 2025 from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's going to be in the Lititz Park. And it's organized by several ladies, and one of us are infamous Mary Gaddis as well. We'll be there. It's going to be an educational activity to teach children and adults the benefits of trees and making everybody aware of our native trees. So that is, anybody have questions about that one? Okay, so I've got 3 activities. I'd like to make a motion to approve the Harvest Festival Block Party, the Lititz Tree Day, and the wedding on Swarthmore.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved?
All right, one other item is a application for a handicap parking space. This is for an individual who lives on South Cedar Street, who currently has a valid handicap parking place card. The individual is requesting an installation of the handicap parking space in front of their residence due to medical conditions they have. Now, they do have a garage out back of their house, but it is a very long access from the back of their garage the whole way up to the back of their house. And with their medical condition, this is why they're asking for it to be right out front of their house. Anybody have any questions? Okay. All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve Miss Watson's handicap parking space at South Cedar Street.
Second.
The motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion approved.
That's it.
Thank you, Tanea. Ken, back to you with finance.
Okay, finance has got about 3 or 4 items here to review. First thing is, council members, you have the August financial statement in front of you. What you're going to see is that revenue and expenses are tracking as expected. On a year-to-date basis, we've collected about 77% of revenue, and on a year-to-date basis, we've spent about 55% of our budgeted revenue or plans there. We do expect some large invoices coming in here in this third quarter that'll are expected coming. So any questions from council? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the August financial statement and pay all the invoices.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion approved.
Okay, the second item of business is to inform everybody that there's been a change in the police pension custodial administration transfer. That's Truist has decided to exit the pension, retirement, non-qualified, and health and welfare benefit plans, and that affects our police department team. So, as a result of this, we have 2 options to consider as council. One is we can actually transfer this pension plan to a new provider, and that's option number 1. And that is following the internal discussions with staff and Truist, a review of the pension and a review by the pension specialized solicitor, and staff recommends that Borough Council approve the option number 1 at this meeting and transfer this to the principal group, principal trust company. And this scheduled transition would be in December. It'll happen over December 5th through the 8th. I imagine that's a weekend of 2025. The key benefits of going to principal is their proven expertise in defined benefit and retirement services. They've coordinated transitions with Truist to ensure continuity. There's a preservation of account history and numbers, and there's minimal disruption to the borough operations. Option number 2 is not as attractive. It requires us to go outside and select an alternate provider. If we intend to do that, we have to submit this by September 28th. It is not recommended by our solicitor to do that, and it would be an extra burden for the borough, which we're not prepared for at this time. Any questions?
Did you say that Principal Trust Company currently does our pension for public?
I didn't say that, but that is true. The principal group does do the retirement pension plan for our non-uniform employees.
Non-uniform, okay.
Ken, when do we learn that this going to take place? When did we learn that Truist was not going to manage our fund any longer?
Well, we were given notice this summer by a letter, and Rob, do you have the date on that?
It was July 29th.
July 29th. And what do we do between then and now to vet other providers? I'm assuming we took a look at that, or do we go ahead with the recommendation of Truist?
There's not enough time to vet other vendors. So that's why the solicitor is recommending that we take option 1.
That's option.
We only have 60 days to make a decision. To go through the RFP process will take
Yeah, I
much
understand.
longer than that.
Yeah.
So that's why we kind of landed where we did. And he feels comfortable that it's still in a good spot. I think some other thing, just to highlight what Ken said, so everybody feels comfortable. Most importantly for our retired police officers, their account numbers will remain the same. Their login information will all be the same. It'll be more behind the scenes paperwork type of migration that'll happen over the
Statements
weekend.
remain the same.
Yep.
Your 10, 15-year history.
Yep.
How long have we had Truist as our pension fund provider?
I don't know the answer to that,
Okay.
but it's been quite some time.
I would be concerned if there's another change coming up.
Well, we're going away from.
I know, but with the new provider, I would assume that they're in for the long haul, assuming that the
I think
returns are accurate and that the funds are managed appropriately.
The principal is number 2, I think, in the nation as far as managing defined benefit pensions such as ours. Where Truist was very, very low in that. This is basically what principal does. It's their business.
Good questions, Jerry. Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve transitioning the Lititz Police Pension Plan to Principal Trust Company for the scheduled transition date of December 5th through the 8th, 2025.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved.
Just a question. Will we need to notify the unions about this transfer, or will they be a part of the conversation?
I think Rob has prepared a letter.
Yep, I have the draft is ready.
Okay.
It'll go out email to Jared tomorrow, then via mail for the retired officers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the third item of business tonight is just to acknowledge that the Word of Life Mennonite Fellowship for their generous financial donation in lieu of taxes. So thank you very much, folks. We are grateful for that. The final bit of information to share is Finance met on Friday, 8/28, and a large part of our meeting was us working on the calendar, scheduling meetings throughout September and October for budget meetings. This is when we ramp up and we meet twice a month as a committee, and then we also have additional meetings with individual departments to thoughtfully go over their budget and look into what they're asking for to serve the community. So our next 2 months are going to be busy, and we've got dates on the calendar. The second thing that we wanted to share tonight is let's see here. At last month's meeting, Finance presented the capital request from our managers to help council get a good understanding of what the managers are looking for to serve Lititz. We reminded council to take some time to review the capital request scorecard and thoughtfully consider our priorities for 2026 and 2027. Tonight, we are here to share revenue sources and financing options in preparation of the 2026 budget. Sharing this information in advance gives council adequate time to study funding sources and consider the Lititz Borough budget priorities. Please, we're doing this in advance to help educate and inform, and also give you opportunities to talk to finance or to Rob in his office to go over any of the numbers that you have questions on. So in the reading materials that you received, we did put some of those documents for financing and services fees that we could consider. For your edification, council isn't recommending, or finance is not recommending, we're just revealing other sources of revenue that we'd like you to study and look at and understand the pros and cons. So the first item that you got was the capital equipment financing plan for police and public works. So with this document, we were trying to give Borough Council financing options for high priority capital equipment replacements projected for 2026 and 2027. In these financing plans, you'll see different terms of timelines, different interest rates that all impact the total amount that we would have to pay to finance some of these items. This is, again, just for your edification of what's out there if we need to consider financing. And And then there's also a pro and con on what, for financing versus cash purchases that you can take a look at and become familiar with. The second item that we put in the literature for reading was just looking at the street light authority or cost recovery for street lights. This is a little bit of a background there. Lititz Borough is responsible for monthly street light services charges, even though the infrastructure is owned and maintained by PP&L Electric Utilities. These charges include energy usage, fixture rental, and maintenance billed under the rate schedule SE, which is a PP&L rate schedule. Costs are based on fixture types and operating hours. Lititz Borough spends approximately $175,000 a year for providing this service. So there are some details on that if we wanted to consider something of that in the future. And I've outlined some of the processes that you can take a look at. Furthermore, Finance Committee is just coming up with a few suggestions for revenue sources, and one is, and it's been brought up by several members, would we want to consider a parking violations rate increase? I think the police department have brought that to our attention in the past. A parking fee increase, not bagging meters in December, and reevaluating our donations that we give annually. So those are just some suggestions that have come through different members for your own edification. Our next steps are to meet with the Lititz Borough managers. We have the budget drafts due on September 1st, and then we're meeting with the police department and public works in the first week in September to review that with them. Please, council, utilize this time to come and ask questions, and then finance will continue to crunch numbers and see what we can plan for in the years ahead. Okay. Thank you very much, Steve.
Okay. Anything on personnel and benefits, Jerry?
No report.
Chris, planning?
Yes, thank you, Steve. Council, you should have a memo in your packet from Elijah dated August 18th regarding the official map updates with the background from understanding of the PA municipalities planning code and requirements for official map updates, and then along with some recommendations. Elijah, can I get you to speak to the gist of this, please?
Yes, absolutely. So the official map obviously is a prioritization of future public infrastructure and priorities. We last updated ours in 2020. Planning Commission reviewed it at the last Planning Commission meeting. Overall, most of the items that were suggested are housekeeping items, updating, including streets. I think the largest one, or probably the two largest items that are on yours, one is there is a proposed trail that goes northwest along the San Domingo from New Street Park. We recently were informed of a couple living on Market Street that's looking to acquire orphaned right-of-way that's adjacent to their property. And in talking with their attorney, I made them aware of the proposed trail that goes by there. Planning Commission looked at the trail, looked at the fact that it goes underneath the culvert that we just replaced, through a couple buildings, over terrain that isn't suitable for a trail, and literally through homes' backyards on Noble Street, and felt that it was inappropriate to have it on the official map. So the proposed change would be to remove that. The other one would be to designate public parking areas, specifically the public parking area that we leased from Norfolk Southern at the Triangle and the public bike parking area. Hopefully we'll acquire the Triangle as part of the Norfolk Southern right-of-way transfer. But if for some reason not, it does give us the right of first refusal based on the official map. It might be challenging with Norfolk Southern, but it shows it as a public priority. We will be looking for action tonight on these. This would not be adoption, but this would be supplying it to Warwick Township to be included in the overall update of the regional official map, which then would come back for adoption at a later date. Any questions?
Elijah, is there a public policy to provide this information to the public prior to adoption as well?
We can definitely put this out there if there's an interest. It was obviously discussed at Planning Commission, so that is public. These recommendations will be in the Planning Commission minutes when they're adopted at the September Planning Commission meeting, and they'll be in the draft map that will be up for adoption and shared for public comment at that time. So I have no problem
Okay.
with sharing it now, but there will be several opportunities for public comment moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Council, any other questions?
No question, but I was amazed at the amount of changes we've seen in 5 years.
Okay, at this time, are there any questions from the audience?
Don't see any here, Chris.
Okay, thank you. Then I'd like to make a motion that we proceed with advising Warwick Township of our intent regarding the official map update.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion. Thank you, Chris. Anything else?
That's all for me, thank you.
Zoning, Mary is not here. I don't believe there's anything, Elijah.
Nothing significant to report.
Building and grounds, Ken?
Thank you, Steve. Elijah, I'll defer to you. You want to list any highlights from the Parks meeting on August 18th?
It was held at the Revolutionary Memorial Park. I think that's what we settled on the name. That was my first point of discussion because we're looking at maybe getting a sign out there. And there's at least 4 or 5 different names that have been used over the past 10 years for that park. So Memorial Park, I think, is the simplest. There is a Veterans Honors Park. There was talk about it being a Veterans Memorial Park. Revolutionary War Memorial Park.
Remind people where that's at.
It's on East Main Street. It's right next to the old tobacco shop. It is down, I'm blanking on the cross Elm. Thank you.
Right past Elm.
Right past Elm. The lion's sculpture is not at the park, but it's right next to it. It's actually the internment area for Revolutionary War veterans that were buried at the edge of town that were tended to at the brothers' house after the Battle of Brandywine. Interesting fact, they thought that was the location. They dedicated it in, I believe, 1932. It was the site of the first radio broadcast from Lititz. And then when they were developing a house on Locust, they actually realized that they got the location wrong and reinterred the Revolutionary War soldiers, or what was left of them, to that park. The VFW and the Legion erected another memorial for a broader range of veterans, I think in the 70s or 80s. So there's actually 2 different memorials there, hence why it's just Memorial Park and not a Revolutionary or something along those lines. Parks Committee does have a concept plan, thanks to Scott in his role as a Parks Committee member and not their borough engineer. Came up with that. They reviewed it and found they are supportive of it, and that's something that they will be discussing at the next Parks Committee meeting for budget requests for next year. So if you've been out there, there were some very old hemlock trees that were there. The first phase of that was done this year because they were removed at both our environmental coordinator and the Shade Tree Commission's request.
Elijah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. I lived a block from there for 20 years and didn't even realize it until I was on the Parks Committee years ago, but pretty sure a large number of the public don't even realize that's there. So it'll be some.
And that's part of the discussion for the Parks Committee, is to have features there that encourage people to visit and to know that it's a public place.
Back to you.
All right. On plan, Mary's not here. Elijah, you aware of anything? She was.
The official map is the large thing, so it's developed regionally. One thing is, so the next time we get it, which we don't have a copy in here, making sure it's not behind me, is maybe making a little bit pronounced of what the borough is. We want to show our regional partners, but there was a little bit of confusion with the Planning Commission review, so it's all adapted as part of the regional comp plan implementation.
Mayor, any report?
Yes. On the lighter side, a community liaison from Freeport, Illinois, reached out to me to explore the possibility of Lititz becoming a sister city with them. The common bond that drew him to Lititz was the history of the pretzel. Freeport, Illinois is known as Pretzel City, USA. Its public high school's team's name is the Pretzels. Same as the old Lititz High School. Freeport, Illinois has a population of around 23,700. It is located in the northwest corner of Illinois, about 20 miles south of the Wisconsin border. A sister city relationship aims to foster cultural, economic, and social ties between the communities. I'm asking council for permission to pursue this further. Any expenses would be taken care of by me. So I would like to take a trip out there just to go to a football game or a basketball game and hear how the cheers go for the pretzels. So I'm asking that I could pursue it and see what it involves. So
I'd be curious. Do we have a city somewhere?
yes.
I'd be
So okay with that?
I concur. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll help you with a gift packet with some pretzels and some Wilbur chocolates, all right?
Okay.
Bring back some,
Thank you.
bring back some pretzels.
Yeah, can you bring back some good pretzels?
Anything else, Mayor?
Nope.
God, I skipped you. Is there anything else other than the report? Chief?
National Night Out was August 12th. We had a great success. We had a lot of people that came out. The weather was nice for it, a little bit warmer than the craft show, which was shortly before that, but still, we had a great turnout. Emergency services, fire, EMS, WESC were present. A lot of fun activities for the community and different other organizations and groups within town that came out. So we got a lot of good feedback from the community. They appreciated the opportunity to spend time with the first responders and for the effort that everybody puts into it. And it's just a lot of good interactions that you otherwise wouldn't have, especially in our line of work when most times you're dealing with someone because something bad has happened. So any opportunity to build those opportunities to make sure that you build that foundation is certainly appreciated on our end. Wise Markets and Pepperidge Farms donated all of the food and drinks that we had given out. We gave out nearly 750 hot dogs. So people were hungry. So, and again, good community partners working with the emergency services to make sure that people are having a good time. Obviously, this is kind of the height of special event seasons. We touched on it earlier, but a couple of big ones that we just went through. Everything, no big issues or hangups. So we're at that point of the year where things start to relax a little bit with the special events as far as the frequency and scope of them. But we're still working through what's scheduled over the next couple of months. And then today, obviously, was the start of school for the Warwick School District. Linden Hall had started about a week or so back. Kind of an interesting dynamic. The head of school for Linden Hall, the super for Warwick, and myself. This is the first school year for all of us. So took advantage of some good opportunities to meet with both of them, reaffirm our commitments to each other for the safety of the campus, students, and staff, and just making sure that those lines of communication are open between the three of us. So, unless there's questions, that's what I've got.
One quick question, Jared, just looking at some of the other information you have in your report here, specifically on the overtime. Are you tracking what it is this year compared to last year? Primarily, I guess, goal was in hiring 2 new officers that was going to reduce. I don't know if you share that in your annual report, but maybe even prior to that, it'd just be good to see, is it helping?
Yeah, and we spoke on it last month too. Did a comparative analysis the first 6 months of 2025 compared to the first 6 months of 2024 and looking at the differences. I'm going to spitball the numbers. They're on record. I have them out, but right. So we've seen a reduction in the total number of overtime and also an increase in the overtime costs that we've recovered either through grant funding streams or through other cooperative or billing agreements that are in place.
Okay.
Chief, I want to say thank you for your presence at these community events. We talked about the importance of community policing and for you to get known now as our police chief. And I've seen you at a lot of those events. I know that's extra time for you away from your family. So I do appreciate the effort that you've made to be present And so the community can talk to you and see you and be a part of it. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, my pleasure. And my outlook on leadership is if I'm not willing to put the effort in myself, I can't ask our guys and girls to do it. So it's important for me to set the example for them. And I do very much appreciate they put a ton of effort in outside of, what you normally expect officers to do for a community. So I appreciate that, but I really just want to make sure that they're included in that recognition too.
Yeah. And I also had a number of comments from people at Warwick Woodlands saying they've seen the cruisers through our community a lot oftener than they used to. So thank you for doing that.
Sure.
I don't know if there's special parties going on or something, but I know that you've been over there and people have noticed that. So thank you.
Sure. I'll pass it along.
Okay.
Thank you, Jared.
Yep.
All right, moving on to the director's reports. Rob, anything you want to share beyond what you have in your report?
Yes, two things actually. One, the HVAC, I was told by the contractor today that their goal is to have it completed by the end of October. So I thought that was great news. Obviously it's fixed in here, which is good. And the other thing I wanted to just point out that's in my report, it's part of our feedback we got from the auditors. They wanted us to check our revenue on a quarterly basis. And as of July 1st, our revenue has been right in line. No significant discrepancies there. So that was something they asked us to focus on. We've been doing it. And just want to let you guys know that right on track. That's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Question for Rob? Elijah, anything beyond your report?
Just as an update, I've finally got the final legal comments from our attorney and passed it on to Norfolk Southern's legal late last week. So we'll see how long the response is from them. I met with the HAC last week, the Historic Area Advisory Committee, specifically for the Planning Commission's request to look into the accessory dwelling demolition requirements. As you may recall, we had a few conditional uses over the past few years where literally everyone was a garage that the person couldn't fit their trucks in. And so the philosophical question is a garage that's not functional as a garage worth historic preservation? Our current ordinance looks at it from a class 1, class 2. Our current historic resource inventory was done in 2008. So what Planning Commission was essentially saying, could this be done at a staff level? Our attorney said no. So what we're looking at is getting our local historic experts to come around and objectively look at these and say, yes, this is worthy of preserving, or no, it's not. When we're specifically leaving out the current classifications, we want an objective take at it. So I was basically giving them kind of the overview. I said, if you come back and say, yes, every one of these and more needs to be done, then that's definitely something we'll need to consider. But based on everything that's happened here, if it's, at least in my mind, if someone goes through the process and every time it's my truck can't fit in and council's saying, yes, take it down, then that's something we need to change with our process.
But they're only going to go around and determine if it should stay on the historical record, not necessarily take it down.
Not take it, correct. Are these structures, these garages, worthy of going through this process, going through Planning Commission, spending the applicant's time and money to do this, to ultimately preserve or have a chance at preserving by council? But if we come to council and council says, no, this is not, then we need to change our process.
I was going to say, because more often than not, it comes down to the structural integrity. Look at it, safe for somebody to use it. Large number.
Right.
Proved because the building was going to fall down.
And this is
necessarily the historical character of it.
And this isn't specific to the primary building. Every primary building would still be on for the review. This would only be for garages and outbuildings. And then just the last update is the green light go for Broad Street should be happening next week. You won't see any major things because these are hardware and detection changes, but hopefully it'll be a little bit more reliable. And when we pave, we're not going to be tearing up loops. Any questions?
Thank you, Elijah. All right, that concludes the manager reports. The last item on the agenda is public discussion for any topics that have not yet been covered today. Anything new anybody wants to discuss? Come on up.
I'm Kathleen O'Hara. I live at 20 Cardiff Court. I was here last month to chat about ICE and some concerns that I had in the event that they showed up in town. And I've chatted with the chief a number of times in person, on phone, by email. And what I'm here tonight to do is to ask the borough to issue a proclamation that states who we are as a community. We're a group of respectful, kind, and caring people. And when folks, law enforcement especially from outside, arrive in our town, we want to state what we expect of them in terms of their behavior and their processes. So I have created a draft recommendation, a proclamation, and I'll read that to you. I have copies that I'll leave behind, and I can email it as well if you would like. So this is the sample proclamation, Borough of Lititz, expectations of behavior of members of outside law enforcement agencies. Whereas the Lititz area was traversed and inhabited many centuries ago by indigenous people known as the Nanticoke Nation. Whereas the Nanticoke sought to avoid conflict and maintained a focus on farming and trade. Whereas the Nanticokes were known as a gentle and peace-loving diplomats who were admired by Europeans for their hospitality and mediation skills. Whereas Count Nicholas Ludwig van Zinzendorf, a nobleman born in 1700, left Germany and came to the New World to pursue religious freedom. Whereas Count Zinzendorf visited Pennsylvania in 1741, met with leaders such as Benjamin Franklin, and reached agreement for the establishment of a free Moravian movement, naming his community Lititz. Whereas the Moravian way of life involves respect and love for others and has historically included pacifism. Whereas we, the current residents of Lititz, continue to live our lives in a way similar to that of the centuries of folks who came before us. We, the current residents of Lititz, believe in treating others with kindness, care, and respect, and we ask others who visit our town to do the same. Therefore, we, the citizens of Lititz, ask the members of any outside law enforcement agency, specifically the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, also known as ICE, to exhibit kindness and respect for others when they enter our community and to exhibit professionalism in all of their actions. Therefore, we ask the following of the members of ICE: travel in clearly labeled vehicles, wear a professional uniform, wear visible and clear identification. If a mask is necessary, wear only a medical face mask, act in a professional, non-threatening manner, and treat everyone whom they encounter with kindness and respect. In witness whereof, the hand is set and the seal of Lititz Borough is affixed this month, day, and year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Were you satisfied with some of the answers Jared was able to share with you about what he's experienced so far?
Jared explained to me that normally outside agencies let them know, give them a heads up, we're going to be in town for this enforcement, whatever it is. In the event that they don't do that and ICE arrives in town, I asked if they received a call, from someone who is witnessing this, would they approach ICE and ask for ID? Because throughout the country right now, people, they're showing up and nobody even knows if they're legit. They don't wear uniforms. They don't have ID. They're just showing up. And could be some, who knows who bought a uniform or a badge from Amazon. So the chief did say that, yes, they would approach and ask for identification. And I appreciate that because it's important. It can be really chaotic.
The question for my own edification, maybe directed at Elijah or Rob, where do proclamations sit? Where do they get published? How are they presented.
So I think a proclamation is typically something that the mayor does, if I'm not mistaken. I think when we've been asked to do it previously, it's done as a resolution and it's non-binding.
Thank you.
Right. And it's a federal enforcement. Anything we do is not binding on them. They can continue to show up wherever they want to show up and create the confusion and the chaos they want to create. But I think from a community perspective, local communities have some rights and states have rights. And we, as members of the community of Lititz, I think we have the right to say what we expect of people who come in, enforcement agencies who come in. They can ignore it, but so many universities, law firms, et cetera, they're just rolling over right now. And I think that the minimum that we can do is say, look, you need to identify yourself when you come here. You need to act professionally. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comments about any new topics? David, come on up.
I'm going to put two quick ones. What she spoke about, I respect what she says, but I don't know that we need a proclamation for the community. So if certain people of the community want to have that, that doesn't reflect the whole community. And I think it would be something I don't really need what the borough should be doing. I respect what she says. I may not agree with her, but I don't think that's something the borough should get into, especially since there's federal supremacy. We don't want to get any kind of situation with the federal government. The other question I ask is, this was somewhat brought up, it's your finance thing. You talked about street lights. Would that be some kind of tax to the residents? And to pay for that money, what you're talking about?
Yes, it could be. Yes.
Okay. Is that what you're looking to do?
I'm not, it was only for edification,
Okay.
Dave. That was what I said probably 3 times because
Right.
it's just our efforts to try to look at how other ways we can generate revenue.
Sure.
And that was it.
Okay.
Other municipalities are doing it. We are not.
I understand.
So it's just
Just
edification.
asking if that's what you were getting to. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other public? Chris?
No.
No, I'm sorry. Chris Strayer here.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
Chris Strayer, Front Street. I'm just curious if we could get an update on the Death Bowl project on Front Street.
We actually talked about that, and Rob, I hand it over to you.
Yeah, we're sorry. Substantial completion. They'll patch the trench on Front Street in the near future. I don't have the exact date on it, but when they're done Front
Near
Street.
future.
How are you goats? Are they recovering?
Chris was doing a very
They
good
wear a
job.
mask because of the dust.
Chris was doing a very good job on craft show day, spraying the
It
road.
was for a while. And
I was looking for a car wash. What do you mean?
thank you.
I'd come on. Right, spraying the road.
Todd Dickinson, South Swiss Street. I just wanted to put on, raise your awareness. A lot of merchants are still seeing a lot of our visitors having trouble with the parking meters. Whether they don't understand that it's a left and right, whether they can't read the instructions on when they work, but mostly the credit card processing can take 1, 2, 3 minutes to go through, and they don't understand. They're confused why they just can't put their card in and come out and it's already worked. So, we encourage them to, if they come into our store, we encourage them to just give it a minute and see if it goes through. But there's a lot of frustration. Sometimes people are spending 5-10 minutes there and they're already frustrated and angry when they get to town for the first time and how the parking meters work. So whether it's following up with the manufacturer and seeing if there's something else they can do to help that coordination, or whether it's long-term budget-wise looking at replacing them. I know I have mentioned it to the chief. I'm not asking him to know exactly what to do next, but I just want to put on your radar that it's still a real problem. We did come to you and ask for meters that take credit cards. I think, your number was a really substantial majority use credit cards as opposed to change now. We used to just be change. I'm not asking you to fix it by this year. I'm just saying, overall, it's not really user friendly. And a lot of people start their visit to Lititz really, really frustrated. So I'm not providing answers. I'm just letting you know that it's not helpful to the people who are coming to town.
Right. Jared, I don't know. I know probably during Carrie's time, we had this conversation. I'm trying to remember if the response was, I mean, is it Bluetooth? Is it Wi-Fi? There was something with the signal that creates, I've had the same thing. Put it on there and I usually walk away and just that it took it. If I back, I got a ticket.
Right. Yeah. Those decisions were, I wasn't involved with them. I don't know all the internal decision making. My understanding of some of that discussion when it occurred was it's a Wi-Fi signal that would transmit that information to the point about people. We are aware that there are some instances where someone pays for the meter ahead of where they're parked inadvertently. If somebody would come to us with a parking ticket and explains that, in most instances there is discretion and the ticket's voided. And again, you handle it through education and say, okay, we'll just, any questions about how this works now, So if somebody would to come to that, I mean, certainly I would not support taking a hard stand on it, and absolutely saying it stands. I mean, we understand that sometimes people may have some confusion and.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be able to correct any of those things. I think I'd be reach out to the vendor. I'd be curious to hear, is it a matter, in the world of offices, they add repeaters, they do different things to try to increase the signal. Just ask them, if there's something with that could help improve the signal. Because I've experienced the same thing. I sit there, and like I said, I usually just get tired of it spinning and cross my fingers.
Right.
But just reach out to them, see if there's anything.
Yeah, and if it's helpful to further the conversation, we can pull data from the back end as far as, the split each month between revenue from credit cards versus revenue from coins and
yeah, I think it's more a convenience factor. Yeah. Fewer people carry a pocket full of quarters nowadays, but I just want to make sure that to your point, we don't want a ton of people visiting and being frustrated. So I would just reach out to the vendor, see if there's something that can even improve the signal that we have to add something.
I'll see what they can offer.
Okay. Come on up.
My name is Melvin Hess, 2 Cardiff Court, Lititz. And I'm here to support the proposed resolution or proclamation, actually. And to say this, that it's a sad commentary when the only opposition is we don't want to do anything to upset the federal government, when we have the most innocuous proposed resolution or proclamation one could expect under the circumstances. When you have people coming in, thuds coming in with masks and taking 6-year-old kids out of school, people should be able to stand up and ask the local government to take a position. And I'm here in support of the proclamation. If you read it, take time to read it. What does it say? Kathy's already admitted it's not enforceable. You all know that. It's a proclamation. And it's in this day and the climate, a voice of reasons. I applaud her and I support what she has proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
David Hendel, 20 Cardiff Court. A comment on the street lights. I haven't driven down Broad Street much lately in the evenings, but I've noticed the length of Broad Street, some of the lights are out, I would say 6 or more at any one time. The borough is paying for the electricity for those lights, whether they're working or not. So I think it's something to consider, the maintenance of the lights in the future.
Excellent point, and we have been communicating with them on some, and they seem to be slow to respond sometimes. So we'll redouble our efforts. But thank you. Yeah, and you're right. There's others throughout the community too, not just Broad Street. But
I know. I travel Broad Street pretty regularly.
But it's a good point.
Yeah.
Consistent history over the years. Anyone else?
Dave Hilbert back again. I was in contact with the township this past week and talked with them as to whether their board has approved the stop sign at Kissel Hill and Sixth Street. And I was told that they have approved it. I don't know who would get that approval on the board here, but now that that has been approved, who picks up the ball and sees to it that this gets done in a very timely fashion? In the last month, we've had about 3 accidents again at that intersection. Some were attributed to the borough police and others went to the region. So they weren't all 3 just for us. But now that we have that approval, sounds like we have all the approvals. I'd certainly like to see us keep on going.
Well, that's the
Just a
intention.
comment, I beg your pardon?
I was going to say, that's the intention with our approving that ordinance tonight. That's the step we have to do to go through that.
Okay,
So
all right, but now can we get this done in September?
trust me, I would love to go as fast as we can. We got that through Elijah. You can kind of, why don't you share exactly what happens next?
Well, I already put an email out to Brian asking, assuming that we were going to adopt this, do they have the signs in stock? Do we have?
I didn't ask any of those.
That's my questions to him,
see.
because
Okay.
obviously we need to put our signs and flashers out at the same time they do.
Right, yep.
So that was my question to Brian this afternoon was, do you have this in stock? And I followed up with Rob this afternoon to see if our public works has it, and he was
Okay.
going to follow up tomorrow morning.
All right,
So obviously if we have it in stock, I think the last time we did this was the one that was further up Kissel Hill and Second.
yeah.
I'm not sure what the lifespan of those are, or if it's something that we rented or owned.
Mhm.
But if we have a stop sign in stock, if we have a pole in stock, and we have
Mhm.
flashers and Warwick has the same, I think it could be done very quickly. But we need to confirm that we have these and then coordinate a date.
Okay, I just want to encourage, I know the trees have been trimmed around the library. I think they need a little more trimming. There's a sign there now, I think that's still hidden. It's a very high sign there. And there's a home right across from the library there. And on his property, somebody was talking about sight lines tonight. I think at the stop sign that's on Sixth, as if you were going east, that house right there in the corner has a tree on its property whose branches obstruct cars coming down that hill. And, we certainly don't want to have them not see that sign. Okay, well, thank you on behalf of the people on Kissel Hill Road and Sixth Street there. I appreciate all your work and all your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Not seeing any others?
Steve, I have a question. What's the process for this proclamation request? What can happen next? What do we do? I'm not familiar with how this works.
We've had proclamations over past year, recent years. I think we've got to have some discussions internally, and
Okay.
it's got to be something that would be drafted by the borough. Elijah, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just thinking of other proclamations we've had, and as you said, they come through the mayor.
Well, a proclamation typically comes through the mayor when, like the Sexual Assault Awareness Month, they did that as a proclamation as the draft, and it essentially just got adopted to our resolution template. So it depends on your internal discussions and whether you want it on the agenda for next month.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
One last thing on the agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
That's what I'm looking for.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.